This program aims to find solutions to your medical queries. It seeks answers to common health problems that have been hounding you. We will help you out in finding answers to your medical concerns. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angel Jacob, and this is MedTalk, your weekly on-air health consultation here on the Solar News Channel.
Tapang eh. Wala ino. Wala.
The Department of Health, or the DOH, has recently declared an outbreak of measles in Metro Manila and other parts of the country. Data gathered from the National Epidemiology Center revealed that from January 1 to December 14, 2013, there have already been a total of 1,724 confirmed measles cases nationwide, 21 of which were considered fatal.
Ang rehiyon na may pinakamaraming laboratory confirmed cases ay ang National Capital Region na nagtala ng 744. Sinusundan ng Southern Luzon or 4A na merong 436. Pumapangatlo ang Region 6 o Western Visayas na merong 282.
The DOH is now on a mission to give vaccinations in the affected areas, particularly in the National Capital Region.
Kung mababa yung vaccine coverage, may isa lang doon magkaroon ng tigdas, okay, kakalat na yung kaagad, lalo na kung ang bahay po nila ay dikit-dikit, kung saan marami pong bata sa isang pamilya. Yun po ang trend. Ang sinasabi namin dito, sino mang bata, kahit na estado mo sa lipunan, kung hindi ka nagpabakuna, makakaroon ka ng tigdas.
What are the clinical features of measles? How can you protect yourself and your family members against this contagious disease? What diagnostic tests are available? Find out the answers tonight on MedTalk. And joining us tonight is Yusek Ted Herbosa from the Department of Health. Also joining us is Dr. Beatriz Quiambao, President of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines and Chief of Clinical Research of the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine. You may join our discussion by calling our hotline at 548-4678. Good evening, Yusek.
Good evening, Angel.
Good evening, Doc Betty. Welcome to the show. Happy New Year.
Thank you for having us. Happy New Year.
Okay, so it's a new year. I understand that there's this, should I say, an outbreak, just like what we saw in the VTR of measles. Does this happen every year, every January?
Not every year. Let me define what we mean when we say a measles outbreak. Our definition, you see, an outbreak is not everything we see in the movie Outbreak. Mm-hmm. You know, that's an Ebola outbreak where many people die. For example, the Philippines has already eliminated polio. So if we have just one case of polio, that will be an outbreak. So for measles, we consider one case of measles per week, every week for about 3 weeks in a particular barangay or community. Mm-hmm. And we will consider that an outbreak. That is our definition. That means there is a continuous spread and contamination of different children in a particular area. Mm-hmm. And that's considered an outbreak.
Okay, so it's a continuous confirmed report, confirmed case of measles patient that is considered an outbreak.
Correct.
Because the thinking, just like what you mentioned earlier, an outbreak is like in the movie.
Correct.
So many in one particular area or just a lot in 1 week, but that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Okay. So now that we know or that we understand the definition of an outbreak, please tell us how the Department of Health is handling the confirmed cases, because off-cam we were talking about it, it's measles season. So now,
correct.
How is the DOH
correct. Also during
this?
the cold season, this is about the time where diseases like measles spread very fast because it's spread by from the nasopharyngeal secretions when you sneeze or when you cough, stay longer, droplet infections stay longer in the air, in the environment. So many people get more infected quickly, and that's why we're alarmed here with this case because the spread of measles is very fast. It spreads in epidemic proportion, but you see, it also doesn't kill as fast as Ebola. So that's another thing a lot of people must understand. The virus, the measles virus, spreads really very fast. And so you'll have cases like this, exactly as reported by ASEC Tayag. But then we have to be wary of children that are high risk that can die, especially children under 5 years old.
So we've defined the measles outbreak, and then we've also talked about just a little about statistics. Now I'm sure our viewers are wondering what exactly is measles and what particular part of our body is affected, Doc Betty.
It's an acute infectious disease, and it's usually manifested with fever and then respiratory symptoms, cough, colds. You usually see children with runny nose, and then they have conjunctivitis or redness of the eyes. They have teary eyes, actually, the eyes are a little swollen. And then they have sores in the mouth. No, they have specific, we call that Koplik spots. Yeah. For doctors, that's what we call them. And they are whitish lesions in the mouth, and the mouth is very grainy, and very red. That's why the children usually don't like to eat too much. They are coughing, and then eventually they develop the rash. 2 to 4 days after they develop the rash usually starts here on the hairline, and then it spreads to the rest, generalized to the rest of your body. Now, if your fever persists, usually after the rash reaches your toes, your fever disappears. If it doesn't, it means you're going to get a complication. Okay. And the complications of measles are the ones that result in death eventually.
But sometimes parents might misdiagnose their children of having measles because a fever, children get fever, and sometimes they get rashes, watery eyes and a runny nose. So what should they watch out for?
Usually one of the common complications of measles is pneumonia, and pneumonia manifests usually with cough, colds, and then difficult breathing. If the child starts to breathe very fast, or if the nose starts to flare when they are breathing, or they have blue lips, cyanosis, that means that they are having a difficulty breathing, and they probably have pneumonia. So they have to be rushed to the hospital if that happens.
These are complications brought about by measles. But let's go back to just diagnosing measles or confirmed reports of measles in the country.
Well, when you're brought to an emergency department and you're suspected of rashes, and the doctors will actually have what we call a clinical suspicion of what your illness will be. And usually it's a viral exanthem, and most likely if it's January, they will say it's probably measles. And because we've been able to do very good campaigns for measles vaccination, in fact, we had very low measles cases in 2012. Actually, we were praised already by WHO for that big decline in 2012. What happens is we have to have the case confirmed. So not everything with fever and rashes is measles. So it can be other things. So what we do is we take samples from the oral cavity, from the buccal cavity, and we send them to our ITM, and we take blood samples and send them to the Research Institute of Tropical Medicine. Today we have that technology to do the confirmatory test. I remember when I was a young student, we still didn't have this capability. It was all clinical. The doctor would diagnose you based on the Koplik spot if they saw it, the character of the rashes, and that's how our doctors and pediatricians diagnose. But today, we don't do that anymore. We say you're still suspected until it is confirmed by laboratory test. And those numbers we're reporting, the ones you saw on the VTR, are actually the numbers that were confirmed. She told me they had about 5,000 samples sent to them. That means 5,000 samples were suspected.
From what period?
From January.
From January, the whole year. The whole year.
year.
That's the whole year.
1,000
And of the whole year, last year, 2013, we had 1,700 plus cases.
Confirmed.
Confirmed measles.
You mentioned
For the
7.
National Capital Region, I have the
Yes.
data for the National Capital. In 2012, we only had 25 confirmed
whole
cases
year.
for the whole year, from January 1 to December 31.
Okay.
But last December 31, we already reported 423 in NCR, in the National Capital Region.
Why
alone.
the increase?
And that's why we declared that particular, because we saw this trend as early as September. So it's not like we announced it last January, the outbreak. We were actually having this surveillance, because the surveillance is all year round. Our epidemiology center reviews the cases of measles. And by actually September, we were comparing it with the previous year, and it was already higher. So we already started on a vaccination campaign for measles as early as October. So that was quietly done. It was not in the news, but we continued to have all these cases of measles in the National Capital Region up to this January.
What was the vaccination campaign? What was the tagline of the vaccination campaign? You mentioned it wasn't in the news,
The
but
program is Ligtas Tigdas program. It's been
Still
a
the
program,
same.
yes, still the Ligtas Tigdas program. And that is continued program. There is routine immunization, wherein we recommend all children should get the expanded program of immunization, not only measles, but all the other immunizable diseases, and then the preventable diseases. And then we give supplemental. And in this one, we give a supplemental because we saw that the numbers were rising.
okay. And in giving the supplemental and in the information dissemination of the campaign, how have the parents responded to this, Doc Betty?
Actually, when you go to the homes, because it's a house-to-house campaign, no, and some of the people refuse
Okay.
to be vaccinated.
Why is that?
Well, some is because, let's say, the parents are not there.
Correct.
So the child is there, the parents are not there. Whoever adult is in the house, they don't want to have the child vaccinated. Something might happen. So that's one. Others they have some misconceptions about vaccines.
Correct.
They think it's harmful, so they'd rather not have their children vaccinated. So maybe something like 20% will not be vaccinated.
Correct.
Okay, so of the 20%, you just rely on their immune system, that it's strong, that they don't get the
Yeah,
virus.
but if you think that you fail to vaccinate 20% every year, at a certain point there'll be so much children that are not vaccinated, and if even only one gets measles, then it will spread very fast. And I think that's what is probably happening at this
Acambiao
point.
is describing what is called the herd immunity. You have to keep vaccinating above 80%, 85 to 95% of the population. If you go below that, what will happen is the herd immunity wanes. And then the virus will propagate.
Yeah.
The virus will propagate. And then this is what you will see. So that's why the reminder of the Department of Health to every mother and every parent is to really not forget, because we want the vaccine to be given to all our children before they even reach the age of 1.
Okay. And a reminder to our viewers, stick around because we'll talk more about measles when MedTalk returns. According to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia website, Olivia, the daughter of Roald Dahl, famous author of Matilda and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, succumbed to encephalitis or inflammation of the brain brought about by measles at the age of 7. Since then, Roald has pushed for further awareness about the measles vaccine and even wrote a piece entitled Measles, a Dangerous Illness, aimed at parents who refuse to give proper measles vaccination to their children. We are back here on MedTalk, still talking about measles. Now, Doc Betty, Yusek, we have a caller on the line, Diane Mendoza. Hi, Diane. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Your question, please.
Are there any side effects of measles vaccine?
side effects of the measles vaccine? Doc Betty?
Well, like in most vaccines, you can have fever.
Mild fever.
And sometimes when you have fever, if it's too high, you can have seizures. That's rare, but it's possible to happen. And then sometimes you have a severe allergic reaction, like anything. You can have it for food, for medicines, but you can also have it for vaccines. But it's very rare to have those. We also have what we call vaccine failure. Let's say you already have received the vaccine, but you still get measles, but the kind of measles that you get is milder. You don't have the complications and you recover from that. So measles vaccine is actually a very safe vaccine and has caused the reduction of measles all over the world. So it's very important to receive it. I think we should not be afraid to give our child measles vaccine because we are afraid of the side effects.
In mentioning that, at what age should they get the measles vaccine?
The first shot is usually given between 9 to 11 months of age. And then there's a second shot between 12 to 15 months of age. So the interval between the two shots should be at least a month. So you need those 2 shots. And then there's usually a booster when you enter school. 4 to 6 years. And in fact, the Department of Health even gives another booster in the high school age.
Oh, okay, there's also one that's administered when you're in high school.
Yes.
And what's interesting probably is that we'd like to tell the moms to keep those vaccination records, because now before you enter school, even my children before they enter school, they had to ask for that vaccination record. And a lot of our parents are unable to keep track of that. They lose that. And sometimes that's a problem. So we're really recommending now that people understand what that record is. We give that away for free as well. The Department of Health gives the vaccination book and the vaccines free. But we do hope that even because it's free, they shouldn't lose it, because if they migrate to another country, OFW yung parents at dinala, that other country will ask for that vaccination book.
Yusek and Doc Betty, we have a question from Facebook. My kid has already been vaccinated. Is it safe to say that he won't get infected by measles even though he has a classmate who has one?
Yes, that's exactly why we vaccinate, so that they can protect him from people who are not vaccinated. So that breaks the spread of the measles.
So even if the one who has measles coughs or sneezes right beside the one who has been vaccinated, Yusek, wala na yan.
Well, wala na. Actually, that's the efficacy of the vaccine. Actually, what Dr. Campbell said is true. The total number of deaths globally is like half a million deaths and they decreased that. In 2000, when we entered this millennium, there was a global, the MDGs, you have the Millennium Development Goals. Now, one of the Millennium Development Goals is to decrease mortality of under 5s in children. And the way to do that was to vaccinate them from preventable diseases. And just because of that campaign, and then even Bill Gates now is pushing for vaccination for almost everyone in the world, all our children, we continue to decrease the people dying. I think they decreased to as much as 70%. The people that have died from measles has decreased about 70%. So very few people should be dying in the world from measles in this era where we have vaccines.
So it's really a responsibility of the parents to be aware and to take their children to get vaccinated. Another question from Twitter: how do I know if I'm suffering from chicken pox and not from measles? Doc Betty?
They are very different. They start with fever, but the rash of measles is red. The rash of chickenpox has fluid inside there. They're vesicles. So that's why it's called bulutum, because it has fluid inside. So it's very different. You can tell right away if it's chickenpox.
Even if you don't go to the doctor right away, you'll know if it's chickenpox or measles.
Show it to any adult in your
It's
house.
like a bubble.
They can tell you.
And it's itchy, no? The chickenpox
it's itchy.
is itchy.
It's itchy.
Okay. We have a caller on the line, Yusek Ted, Doc Betty. Javier Velasquez. Hi, Javier. Good evening.
Good evening.
Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, my question is this. I've had measles when I was small, like 8 years old. And I recovered without any vaccination. Now, my question is, they told me, the doctors over the years have told me that once you have recovered, you develop a permanent immunity to it. you'll never get it again. Are they correct?
That is correct, Javier. No, you can get immunity from a disease two ways. One is natural, which is what you acquired. You got the disease at the age of 8. Your body develops antibodies to the virus, the measles virus, and that antibodies stay forever in the whole lifetime. You will never get measles again. You can still get the other viral exanthems, which are measles-looking viruses, but it's not going to be measles. And it's correct, you will not get it again once you get the disease and your immunity is. In fact, what they say is that natural acquisition of the disease is 100% immunity. We were talking about vaccine failure. We have a small chance, 1 in 10, wherein we have cases reported that even if the parents had them vaccinated, the child still got measles. So pwede rin yun.
Pwede. Okay. Javier?
Yes?
Yes, hi. Any other question?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
That's it. You're most welcome. Thank you for coming to the phone. All right. So now we talk about the signs and symptoms of one that is suspected or
Correct.
to have measles. So what's the first sign that one does have measles?
The first sign is usually fever, and then it comes.
Is there a certain is it low grade, high grade?
It's high
fever?
grade.
High grade fever.
High grade
Virals,
fever,
all the high
and
grade.
then cough and colds, running nose, and then red eyes. Usually, and they have a certain kind of cough. It's described as a brassy cough. In local language, it's matigas. And
Okay.
usually for physicians our age, when you hear that, you know that's measles.
that, yeah.
You just hear the cough, you know that's measles already, because it's so characteristic of measles. Then after that, some children, most children will get the rash, 2 to 4 days later, and then it becomes generalized. Some children develop diarrhea with the measles.
But there's always a rash that accompanies.
There's always, always. It's not always the same kind, because it's maculopapular, it's red, it starts from your head to your toes. Sometimes that's not the distribution, but that's very rare. Just with the clinical course that the fever disappears after the rash reaches the legs, you already think, yes, this is measles.
So are the signs and symptoms the same in children as well as in adults?
Yeah, yes, but usually we get it in children. This is a childhood illness. Only a small percentage, 10%, 20%, get it when they're adults.
Why is it a childhood illness?
Well, it's because first, adults already have the immunity. They were either vaccinated as a child or they had the illness
As a child.
as a child. So when they grow up, they already are protected. Children usually don't have that. They don't have the immunity yet, if they have not yet been vaccinated.
How about for the incubation period of
It's
one
about
that
10
has
to 12 days. So during that time, the child will not have any symptoms. So you don't know that the measles virus is inside his body. And then he starts to have the fever. Then you already have the frank symptoms. By that time, the child is already contagious.
Correct.
4 days before he gets the rash, and 4 days after the rash appears, he is contagious.
Okay. But sometimes, the child doesn't know that he has measles.
Correct.
And then his
That's
playmates
why.
also don't know
Correct.
that he
Correct.
has measles.
That-
So they
that's why
continue to play and
That's why
spread
it
the
spreads
virus.
very fast. That's why this is why measles is scary. It's scary because it spreads very fast to epidemic and outbreak proportions. By the time you have the rashes, it's like 2 weeks already, 14 days. So that means someone you played with 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, or a
Already.
cousin you
Yeah.
visited, or some relative you played with is probably the source of the virus. And then you have to call that person and find out, did you have rashes after about a week? And that's probably how you know you got it from that person.
But diba, sometimes families would say, oh, see, your cousin has measles, why don't you go there already and play with him so you get the virus?
During our
already?"
time, it was like that.
Now no more.
But now,
During your time,
why
Doctora?
why do you
How
want
about
to
this
get
time?
measles?
No, that's,
No, yeah, why do you want to
Why
get
do you
it?
want to have your child? Because many years ago, measles was mild.
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing. You're a little weak, but you can still play. That's why you said, okay, go there to your cousin's house and get the disease. But now it's not. I mean, many people die from measles. Now we don't probably didn't know it then, no,
Yes.
but here there are many complications now.
Especially the very young, no? The very young and the malnourished. They're the ones that are very high risk. Actually, it's all about risk, managing the risk of death and the risk of major complications. And vaccination, immunization is probably the single most important tool in public health. If you want to protect the health of a country, the best way is to vaccinate all the children and immunize, and you will grow up healthy without children dying before the age of 5. And that's why that was included in the Millennium Development Goals, because the idea is that people should understand the power of immunization, the power of vaccination. And big people like Bill Gates, the Global Fund, are putting lots of their money and personal money into a global campaign to eradicate measles by 2020 in the world, globally.
Wow.
Globally. So
So
that's
we're now
a very strong.
2014, that's 6 years from now.
Yes, and actually we were actually going close to it until 2013 when we had some outbreaks in different parts of the world. No, the Philippines is not the only one with an outbreak. We had one in Swanson in Wales, in Texas in the US. I think in Swanson in Wales they claimed that some parents believed what was going around the internet, that vaccination is related to autism. And because of that, that has been disproved, ladies and gentlemen. It does not. It has no clinical relation with autism, and because of that, many children died in Swanson. So when that happened, the health department there was able to convince all parents to actually vaccinate their children. They did mass vaccinations. In the U.S., there was in Texas a ministry, a religious ministry that preached that they don't have to vaccinate the children, that whatever God gives them is what they should. And after they had an epidemic, the preacher changed her stand on it and gave out an official statement saying, yes, you should vaccinate your children. That is a choice that is also given by God. So, and that's the same in the Philippines. In the Philippines, I think part of why we're experiencing what we're experiencing today is that many misconceptions and beliefs are there about vaccination, but in fact it's the single most effective campaign for a healthy population.
So with a healthy population comes awareness, of course, in trying to, so that the children can play, so that, you're not afraid that if someone coughs or sneezes, the virus will spread immediately. So when we come back, I know there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about the vaccine, the measles vaccine. We'll talk about that when MedTalk returns.
Did you know that? An estimated 6,000 Filipino children died from measles in 2003, with a majority coming from poor households who had at least access to public health. To address this, the Philippines launched Ligtas Tigdas campaign of the health in 2004. The campaign, which aimed to vaccinate 18 million children between 9 months and 8 years of age using a door-to-door strategy nationwide, decreased measles cases in the country by 96% and deaths from measles by 99%.
We're back here on MedTalk, still talking about measles. You may join our discussion by calling our hotline at 548-4678. Yusek Ted and Doc Betty, we have another caller on the line, Richard Castro. Hi, Richard. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Thank you. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, I started the show late, but I know when you're a newborn under a year, you're supposed to get the vaccinations. After that process is done, at what older age do you need the booster shot?
Dose, excuse me. The first dose is usually given at 9 months, between 9 to 11 months. And then a booster dose of MMR, which is measles, mumps, and German measles, which is rubella, is given between 12 to 15 months of age. And there's a second MMR, usually given 4 to 6 years
Just
of age when you
school
enter
age.
school.
Just before school.
When you enter school. And like I said earlier, the Department of Health even gives another MMR high school
Just to
age.
cover.
Because in the US, they've found that over the years, the immunity from the measles vaccine comes down, so it wanes. So you might create a pool of susceptible individuals, people who can get measles. So they give another booster at that age.
And it ends there. It stops
And
there.
it ends there.
Okay. Right.
Oh.
Would you have another question?
So the booster is very
Yes,
important.
I have a follow-up. If you're a diabetic, can you get the booster shot?
Have you had measles vaccine?
Yeah. If you're a diabetic at a young age, can you get that shot, or is it not allowed because you're a diabetic?
It's allowed.
It's allowed.
It's allowed.
It's allowed. You can have it.
In fact, you should get it.
Correct. That's good, because if you're diabetic, you're considered high risk because you're immunocompromised. And that means the complications of an illness. If you're diabetic and you get an illness like measles, that can flare up to complicated cases because your immune system is lower. In fact, those are the people I want to be immunized.
Right.
What about at an older age? What do you recommend?
You mean adults?
Yes, an adult or an older person, let's say within their 30s or 40s.
If they've never had measles and they've never been vaccinated, which is you either have one or the other by that age, then you can get vaccinated. It's not part of the target of the Department of Health.
Correct.
Because the real target of the disease is the children. But you can, there's no
It's an option,
contraindication to be vaccinated. If you want to, you can get vaccinated.
But if you go to our health center, we'll probably turn you away.
Yeah.
And we'll give it to the children under 5, correct?
So who should Richard go to, or who should anybody go to it
To
for
a
that
doctor,
matter?
a pediatrician, they will
Yeah.
actually give it, or an infectious disease doctor will give it, or advise him whether he needs it or not.
All right, Richard.
Yes, thank you very much. You're grateful with all your answers.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
calling. All right, so Yusek Ted, Doc Betty, we have a question now from Facebook. I have 5 children and I suspect that one of them already has measles. How do I make sure the disease doesn't spread around?
Isolate the
Yeah.
one.
You isolate
You
that
isolate
child.
that child.
Okay.
You isolate that child, separate
do
room,
you-
make sure that they don't. Measles spreads by either aerosol when you cough through someone, so that means you're 6 feet away and I cough to you, you can get the virus. The other way is the spread of secretions. If they touch their nose, they touch their playmates with that, and their playmates touch their nose again, they can acquire that. So all those body secretions that they have, when they have the measles, it can spread to the other kids. So the best way is to separate the one without the measles.
So for how long? A week?
Well, while he has the symptoms, of course you observe if he's really going to get measles.
Okay.
You look for the rash, etc. But there's one thing that we call post-exposure prophylaxis. If you already have a case of measles, and then you have people who are exposed, within 3 days from the exposure, you can give the vaccine, and it will still be effective. Beyond 3 days, maybe not.
No, okay. We have another caller on the line, Larry Sihuko. Hi, Larry. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Please go ahead with your question.
Question is, what if a pregnant woman gets infected with measles?
Pregnant women are, any viral infection in a pregnancy causes some risk and complication to the fetus and the baby. That's also the other reason why we give rubella and the other vaccination, because we don't want our women to grow up, become pregnant at the childbearing age, and then have the risk of complications to the fetus. So this is another very important reason why we vaccinate all our children.
Okay.
I've noticed all our callers are men.
Men, yes.
How are the mothers? Now I'm beginning to realize why we have a measles rise of cases, because it's the men who are interested in measles.
Maybe our next caller will be a woman,
Yeah.
will be a mother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, that's a good observation. You said.
Yeah, I think the women are still washing the dishes.
Maybe the women are requesting them first, or cooking, or taking care of
Maybe
their
they're
child who
together
has
and
measles.
they ask, hey, you call up, and then find out about that question.
Possibly. The women can also call. Everyone can call 548-4678. What are some of the misconceptions about measles? Myths and misconceptions. Doc Betty.
Some people think that the rash of measles, they call it lumulubog. It disappears. They think that it disappears. And for them, that's a sign that the child will have a more serious illness and die. So that's why some mothers, they wrap their children. They don't allow them to be exposed to air, because they think that that kind of exposure will cause the measles the rash to disappear. No? Lumulubog. But that's not true. Actually, when you wrap the child, the fever becomes higher, the temperature becomes higher, and there's a chance that the child might develop a convulsion from the high fever. So it's really wrong to do that.
I'll add another one, because I worked in the ER for many years before I became undersecretary. They don't give them a bath.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's not allowed, because the lola will say, bawal paliguan yung batang may tigdas. And that's even worse, because the child becomes dirty and it even increases the chance of secondary bacterial infection because of hygienic purpose. And there is no contraindication. There is nothing to prevent you from giving the child a tepid bath. In fact, when the fever is very high, that's what we do in the ER. We actually cool them down by sponge bath, by a tepid sponge bath, just to cool down the temperature of the kid quickly. Or else they'll go into convulsion, especially those under 6.
How about the temperature of the room? How should it be when one has measles?
Yeah, comfortable temperature. It doesn't have to be, because they have fever. And the problem with fever, especially high fever, as Dr. Akembao described, is the children get dehydrated. So we get them in our emergency room dehydrated. They're not being hydrated. So these are the other fallacies that people do. I've heard people, they even put black clothing on the child because they say it will prevent the spread and the child will not die. So there are so many myths. The only thing proven really is really giving vitamin A, correct? Vitamin A, once you get the measles, what our pediatricians do is to give supplements of vitamin A, because they found out that the children that die are those with low vitamin A. So if you're malnourished, the chances of dying is higher. And if you're malnourished, most likely your stores of vitamin A in your body are low. So the pediatricians actually give them a dose of, that's the
while
only
they're
treatment.
sick, while they
Yes.
Is this taken orally or is also a shot?
No, it's oral.
Oral, okay. So that's recommended for everyone, every child who has measles to be given vitamin A.
Yandukar, blindness, no? Because that's one of the complications of measles.
You can have ulcerations on your eyes and it can cause blindness. So
if you have low vitamin A.
Vitamin A.
Any other complications that can arise from the measles
Well, you can have
virus?
encephalitis. It's
inflammation
of the brain. So when it affects your brain, you have seizures and you have developmental delays.
How does it lead to that? When you're home care and you're well taken care of by your mom or your dad, your family members, how does it lead to a complication?
Well, let's say pneumonia. Okay, pneumonia as a complication. There is pneumonia from the measles virus itself, and there's a pneumonia from other bacterial infections that get inside your body because you are weak, your defenses are low. So the pneumonia from measles is very common. But since it's a viral infection, most children will recover from that.
Correct.
However, there's a certain proportion, let's say if you're malnourished, like Doc Ted said, and you will probably not be able to fight off that measles pneumonia. Now, the secondary bacterial infection, that's treated with antibiotics, and it's a complication of measles. Now, regarding the encephalitis, there's actually like a controversy. Some say it's because the measles virus went up to your brain. Some say it's just a reaction of the body to the. It's like an immune response of the body to the measles virus. So we don't know yet which it is, but it's a very sad complication. Because, of course, your child will have seizures, you'll have learning disabilities later. And if he even survives, learning disabilities, maybe he'll become blind or so many more complications from encephalitis.
And we do not want those complications.
Of course.
So who do we bring our child to avoid these complications from happening?
If the disease is just starting, you have fever and rash, you suspect measles, you can bring to the health center because they're all trained to identify measles and they know what to recommend to the mothers. But let's say you already have a child, he already has the rash of measles, and you see that he's not breathing very well, he's not eating, he has diarrhea. So he's starting to lose weight, and he becomes dehydrated. You have to bring to the hospital, and he probably will get admitted.
That's actually the scary part of the myth when they cover them.
Yes.
Because we doctors, we actually look at the chest and how fast actually the child breathes. So when we open that, we already see, oh my God, this one is already complicated. That means there's already very complicated pneumonia. So very important for mothers to actually look at that. They are coughing and then they're breathing. You can tell if the child is breathing heavily. The muscles actually show up, and they're, it's like someone who has hunger for air.
Yung parang difficulty.
Having difficulty. Their nose is flaring. Their chest is, heaving very quickly, very fast. So that's the time you really go to that's the time we admit them to the hospital because they need to be watched very closely or else that's the time that's critical. Most of the time, if you go to the health center, they see a healthy baby with rashes. They'll actually send you home with the paracetamol, fever, some advice to hydrate, and all that stuff. But when they see the child like this, you go straight in the hospital. You have to admit the
child right away. Even, sometimes, like what we've been saying all throughout the show, that it's highly contagious. So bringing a child to the hospital will spread,
expose the
others to the virus.
Correct. That's the other thing we would like to explain to the public because a lot of our media stations show one hospital, either the San Lazaro Hospital, which has the most number of cases, or RITM, which is the most number of cases. And they tend to show a biased look of the number of cases because all hospitals, when there is a lot of measles, they send them to the infectious disease hospitals. And this is to protect the other children who are admitted from other illnesses there. And that's really a system that we do in Metro Manila.
Now I understand.
So when you take shots of kids lining up at San Lazaro Hospital, that is an intended thing. We want them to be sent to San Lazaro or RITM. But we get the other kids and send them to the other children's hospitals. So that's... Unless the hospital wants to put up a separate measles ward. I don't think I've heard of one that's put up yet. But we have what they do is they admit them in a single room, which is just a special room, making sure that it's isolated and doesn't infect the other patients there. So that's a system for all infectious diseases. We try to, remember the SARS?
Yes.
We also put them all to RITM or San Lazaro. That's to protect the rest of the population because these diseases spread very fast. So, and you don't want that. You don't want them spreading in all the other children.
Yes, and no wonder these are the two hospitals that we hear often.
All the time.
All the time when there are when there are viruses like this. We have a question from Twitter. Is it still safe to give measles vaccine to my Lola who is 66 years old?
It is safe, but it's not advisable. It is safe, but it's not advisable.
Does she need it?
Okay.
She most probably either had the disease,
naturally.
Probably had the disease because 66 years old, I don't think we had the measles vaccine.
We didn't have the Ligtas.
We had it in the 1980s.
So
she most likely had it.
She probably acquired the disease naturally, and she probably has antibodies for it actually. So she doesn't need it.
Okay. So to the one who sent in the Facebook question, your lola doesn't need it. All right, Yusek Ted and Doc Betty will talk more about measles when MedTalk returns. We're back here on MedTalk, still talking about measles, and we have a caller on the line, John. Hi, John. Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, good evening. Just would like to ask, kasi I remember measles is a childhood disease, right?
Correct. It's a childhood disease.
Kung tama yung nagkaroon ako mga around 8 years old ako.
You were in school, correct. Anong grade ka nun? You were probably
Grade 2, grade 3.
grade 3, grade 4.
Yes.
Correct. Yes, because that's the time you get exposed. That's why we give booster shots just before school age. Because you don't know who your classmates will be. And if they're carrying the virus, you can get it at school age.
So, John, your question, please.
Yes. Ang tanong ko lang, since nagkaroon na ako, ba't nagkaroon pa rin uli ako ngayon? I'm in the mid-40s.
Oh,
Measles?
Meron ka
probably
ngayon?
not measles. Oh.
Yes.
There are conditions there. Either what you got at age 8 was not measles and what you got now is measles, or what you got at age 8 was really measles and you have some other viral infection that looks like measles but is not measles. And there are many that can happen. German measles, the other infections, viral exanthems, that look like measles. You understand, John?
John?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the fact that if you got tick dust when you were 8, you have lifelong immunity. You have antibodies for the measles virus.
So baka he can consult a doctor again kasi kung meron siya now in his 40s, just to rule out that it is measles or it's some other virus.
You should get yourself tested. There's been one in literature, I think 1 or 2 people who claim they've had measles as a child and then documented measles as an adult, but very rare. Very rare. So you should, if you have not had yourself tested, please go to your doctor.
Correct.
John?
Yes. Nagpa-check up ako yesterday and the doctor advised me to take immunosine.
It's an antiviral. Yeah.
Okay. So, hello, John?
Yes.
Okay, so,
It's an antiviral, to lessen the course of the illness, whatever viral. So obviously, your doctor thinks you have a viral infection. And did your doctor say you had measles?
John?
Wala na.
Okay.
I think we
So,
lost John.
he saw his doctor already yesterday and he was given medicine. So that's a start for him to get well soon.
Most viral illnesses kasi, we have a normal course that you recover from it. Like flu, it's a viral illness. You recover from it healthy, and you have now antibodies produced in that. So, we don't really have to go to the academic part of really testing every single patient.
Okay.
So, we know it was either suspiciously probably measles or some of the variants of the viral infections. And we don't have to test clinically all the time because it's additional cost.
Yes.
So because the treatment will not change. The treatment will be probably some antiviral, some paracetamol, hydration, and wait for your body to convalesce and recover.
Because it has to take its course.
Correct,
Because
correct.
it's a virus.
Correct.
Okay. So every time we get a flu or
It's the same,
a virus, it's the same. Yung, diba? And then after a while, lalakas ka na lang ulit.
Correct.
Diba? Because your
And you
immune
become
system's
immune to
not-
that
yes.
particular serotype of flu that. But But for measles, there's only one, right?
Because flu has different strains, no?
Correct, correct.
But measles is just one.
Yes.
One all throughout. It's just one. So with the information that I read on the internet that there's this new virus, measles virus that has been...
That's the good news, because one of the
Found out.
theories in the past few days of this outbreak thing of measles is that it might be caused by a different variety of measles that's now spreading among the children. And I think the Research Institute of Tropical Medicine has confirmed as of yesterday, this is the same virus. This is not a variant.
All right. Thanks for sharing the good news. So
That's the good news. Yes, that's the good news. That means our vaccines continue to work. Because if it were a different, variant, the problem there is we need to create a new vaccine, because that means the vaccines we're giving to the children will not work.
Okay. Oh, we have another caller on the line. This time, a lady. Hi, Malu Benito. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to ask if you've already had a measles vaccine. Does that mean you cannot get measles and you cannot infect anybody? Because I've had experience where my children had chickenpox and they still got a chickenpox vaccine, but they still got chickenpox and they still were contagious.
Thank you, Malu.
When you get one shot of measles vaccine, the effectiveness or efficacy is about 90%. So there's a 10% chance that you did not develop protection from the disease. So there's a chance that you can still get measles and spread it to other people. But if you get the booster, the second dose, the chances become less and less. So it's almost 100% that you're protected if you have the second dose. That's why you need that second dose, so that for yourself, you are protected, and of course, you cannot get the disease and spread it to anybody else. Chickenpox is a little, well, it's the same, but I think the chances, the efficacy rate is a little less than the measles. So breakthrough chickenpox is a little more common than measles.
Siguro, let us explain how the vaccination works. What really happens is we give you measles so that it's actually attenuated viruses. These are weakened viruses, so that it stimulates your immune system to produce antibodies to the measles virus. So as what Dr. Kembao said, in certain cases, the amount of measles that were instilled, or the reaction of your body was not enough to produce the lifelong immunity. It was how your body reacted. Bodies react differently in terms of developing. That's why you need the booster. The booster boosts again and asks your body to develop more antibodies. That's why she said, as you get the booster, the immunity becomes almost 100%, just like a naturally acquired illness, naturally acquired measles vaccine. So that's very important. The booster is also important. And that's what's forgotten by some of our parents. And I'd like to congratulate our caller, because she's the first woman, first mother to call in.
So, we'd like to thank all our callers. And again, Yusek Ted, thank you very much for coming to the show and for, orienting us and helping us understand more about the measles virus and how and why we should be more responsible as parents to give the vaccine to our children.
Yes, Angel, it's part of responsible parenthood that we bring all our children to the health centers for vaccination. And whether you're from the sector that cannot afford the vaccine, it's free. If you can afford a pediatrician, they will also give the vaccines on a regular schedule for you. So there is no excuse not to give the vaccines to your children.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
thank
true.
you very much, Yusek Ted Erbosa. Doc Betty, final message.
Like Yusek Erbosa said, vaccination is the key. We cannot stop this increased number of cases if you don't vaccinate. So those who have just one dose or have never had any measles vaccine, go to your doctor. You must have yourself vaccinated.
Okay, so thank you once again, Yusek Ted Erbosa and Doc Betty Kimbao. Again, I'd like to thank our guests for tonight. Learned so much about measles and how to be responsible parents and responsible citizens.
Correct.
Yeah. So we'll see you again next Tuesday, 7 p.m. here on MedTalk, your scheduled on-air consultation on the Solar News Channel. This is Angel Jacob. Good day, everyone. Good night.